welcome to Village in Motion. It is Thursday, it's May 23rd, and I'm Clint Lambert, and it's my pleasure to be the host today of Village in Motion. We're going to be talking about General Services with two of the committee representatives here from General Services today. And I have in our presence John Lee and Janice Kuch, and we're very, very pleased to have both of you with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John, you are kind of second in command of General Services, or are you?
Yes.
Where's your role?
I'm, I guess they call me co-chair.
Co-chair, okay.
And I'm usually here every time there's a big event and Larry skips town. Anyway, but
Larry Ayers, right?
Yes, Larry Ayers is the chair, and a very good chair. And he's doing a very important job today. He's in Atlanta witnessing the graduation of his granddaughter,
all right,
who is a fantastic scholar and is going into some very fancy engineering with a full ride from somewhere. So,
okay, nice, very nice.
So that's
very
priority.
Good. Well, we're glad to have you here, and
glad to be here.
You know, we wish Larry and his granddaughter all of everything.
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Very good. John, how many people are on the committee?
About 25.
Okay.
Well, 24. We had one pass away last week.
Oh, sorry to hear that. My understanding is that the General Services Committee, as a committee, is then divided up to 4 different subcommittees.
That's correct. In fact, I'd say that a big chunk of the work is done in the subcommittees.
Okay.
And then we come back into the general meeting once a month with the overall General Services committee meeting, and sort of report back, and then among all of us, we sort of hash out issues that need to be hashed out.
Okay.
Look at where else we need to collaborate across committees, subcommittees, and basically decide whether we've solved a problem or whether we need to do more work on it or send it forward to the resident council.
Okay. With the subcommittees, you then have a role with those subcommittees, right?
Yes. Generally, Larry, sometimes, and then the liaison with the resident council.
Yes.
In our case, it's David Kaiser.
Okay.
Excuse me. They generally sit in, not 100% of the time, but probably 75% of the time. They'll sit in on the meetings of the subcommittees.
Okay.
More not to tell them what to do or to interfere with them with their work, but basically to communicate it back, like David Kaiser brings back information from the resident council.
Right.
And Larry may have a few overview points, but then they sit back and let the subcommittee do its work until they're called on.
Right.
So that's ideal.
Okay. And the subcommittees meet once a week, once a month?
Subcommittees meet once a month.
Okay.
And then we report back to the General Services Committee, the big committee, we call it. And that meets the first Tuesday of every week, every month.
Every month. Okay.
And when they meet, all 4 subcommittees have already met, and we have both a written report that's in the minutes. We send it to the secretary, who is Ron Patterson. And we also then give an oral report highlighting the key things that we need to bring before the whole group.
Oh, okay. And then Lynn Keefe attends the big committee, right?
That's
if she's available.
And she tries her best to get available as much as she can. As much as she has to do, she tries to make it. And that's a drawing card, because everyone wants to hear what Lynn has to say about what's going on around here.
Right.
And we get a lot of good information.
In case somebody doesn't know who Lynn Keefe is.
She's, well, what do you call it?
Director.
She's a director of projects, maybe, but she's running overall the project.
She's the director of General Services, is what she is.
Yes, that's right.
And so she's responsible for everything with General Services. And as I was told 11 years ago when I moved here, General Services does everything that they can think of around here, and then other things as well.
Oh, it's amazing what they cover and how busy they are. And generally they're 1 or 2 people shorthanded. They keep recruiting. Right. And they all carry a heavy load, really. And Lynn carries a very heavy load.
Right, really do.
And she's good.
And Janice, you are associated with a subcommittee and as well as a general committee, right, of general services.
That's right. This is my second year of service on the subcommittee for maintenance, engineering, and grounds.
Okay.
And I'm sitting in today for the chair of that subcommittee, Dave Smith, who is traveling away from campus.
Okay. So this is a day of substitutes, but we're glad we have substitutes.
Glad to be here.
Very good. Janice, you have 3 areas under you with that subcommittee.
Right.
Give us a little overview, if you would.
Well, it's a very complex set of issues that our subcommittee oversees. There are 19 buildings on campus. Dogwood Commons was the 19th. So everything you can imagine that is related to the upkeep and updating of those buildings, plus the grounds that surround them, is of concern to our committee.
Okay.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It really is. And fortunately, we just got a new grounds person, right?
Yes, and the residents who have looked at the new issue of the Villager newsletter that they just got will see an article by our subcommittee chair, Dave Smith, about Omar Alvarado's plans for this year. He's got a very long to-do list, a very ambitious plan, but this is the time of year when the residents are really looking outward at the grounds. Winter's over, people are out and about. They're interested in the health of the plants and trees and flowers on the grounds because it's such a part of our enjoyment of living here at Green Springs. So it's very important.
And one of the things that I've noticed recently, people seem to want to plant things outside on the grounds. That's kind of a no-no, right?
Lynn Keefe would certainly prefer that people touch base with general services. And I believe that's actually codified in writing with our resident agreement when we move here, that we will not make alterations without approval. So yes, the general services staff would really like to talk with people before they go ahead and make changes.
Okay, very good. John, you have the security and safety component as far as the subcommittee, right?
I do. I chair the Safety and Security Subcommittee. We work with Ben Bettercrew, better known as, Jean-Vier Bettercrew, better known as Ben. Everyone around here, and Ben is a good man to work with. He's faithful in attending the meetings, and he's got a pretty heavy load. He's charging off in all directions at all times. Yeah.
What are some of the things that come before the committee from safety and security?
Well, like Janice says, an amazing variety of things that we never probably thought of a year or two ago. But we've done, for example, if you look at some recent articles, one of the things we do is communicate. Try to say, okay, what are the things that we talk about of concern to the administration? The residents don't have any information. We go to the Villager, we go to the Scroll, we go to the bulletin boards, wherever, and try to provide information. So we have constantly some information coming out. And to illustrate an issue or two, for example, in the previous to this month, Villager, last month's Villager, we had an article on the, sometime recently back, on the protocols for what to do if something happens in your apartment. They just don't come walking into your apartment. Security doesn't. They have a set of protocols they follow, and we want everyone to understand those protocols because they should know they're very, very careful, very respectful about that. And so we have a long article saying step 1, step 2, step 3 before they set foot in the door. They do it fast sometimes, but we had an article on that. We've had articles on a big issue that I never thought about before. You know, when you travel, going to be going overnight. You need to sign out. And we come back, sign in. Well, sometimes people forget to do that.
That they do.
And we try to remind them, we did in one article, why that's so important. And we went through with Ben some examples of things that had happened when people forgot to do that. And we put out the protocols. You know, if you don't sign out, and they find out you're not there, then you go on a special alert list.
Mm-hmm.
If they find out second night you're not there, by the third day, by this time they've already interviewed neighbors around you and someone who might know where you are.
Right.
Then they put out an alarm. They call family. They try not to scare the family ahead of time, but they start contacting family and others to find out where you are. Oh, she's out in Las Vegas. Didn't she sign out? No, she didn't sign out. Well, a lot of things, people are running around all over the place trying to find them.
Right.
So to preserve the sanity of people around you, sign out.
Yes.
And when you come back, sign in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very important. And there's a set of protocols, and they would put those protocols in the village.
Yeah. Good.
And
even I would say, even if we are gone and we suddenly realize we forgot to sign out, call back, right?
all you have to do is call back and call the front desk. The number's right on the back of your tag.
Yes.
Back of your Green Spring tag, and call out. In fact, that number is very important. That's one of the other things that we do,
Mm-hmm.
is tell people how important that number is.
Yes.
If you fall somewhere and you can't find the cord, you're out in the hall, nobody's around, if you have a cell phone, call that number. That's Town Center.
Right.
And Town Center is where the switchboard is, where the dispatcher sits back behind.
Right.
And they are the front desk person who will get security there pronto.
Yeah. And there's always somebody there 24/7
Yes.
at the front desk
In Town Center.
at Town Center.
Right.
Correct.
They're there. And they're good.
Yes. That they are. They do a lot of work there. They really do, and they do a lot of triaging of us.
Yes.
In regards to issues that arise.
Yes.
In regards. And the other front desk, I understand, have someone at the desk until 10 o'clock at night.
Yes. 10 or 11. I think
10 or
10,
11, 10?
10 I think is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
In regards to it.
But if the phone rings there, if you call the wrong desk,
Right.
and the phone does ring there, it rolls over to the Town Center.
Okay.
So Town Center is always catching all the phone calls to all the other front desk. And in fact, during the day, if they're busy,
Right.
they'll still roll over. But at night, that's critical.
Yes, it really is.
It's amazing what the what the maintenance, what the security staff go through. They get literally hundreds every month. Sometimes as many as 300.
Wow.
Pull cords, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them are just mistakes, accidents. But you have to make sure. You never know what someone might be in distress. They take every one of those seriously, and they're running every night to apartments to respond to an accidental pull cord.
Yes, yes.
People call in from their neighbors, from the family sometimes, and say, last time I talked to my mother, she was not feeling well. Could you go by and check on her?
Right.
It's called a welfare check. And not a check you received in
Yeah,
welfare.
exactly.
but a well-being check. And lots of calls, even maintenance. Sometimes they're called on to help with maintenance at night if it's an emergency.
Right. And my understanding with that is, if you call, if maintenance is closed, if it's after hours, and it's after the evening person has left from maintenance, if you call the front desk, they'll make sure that it gets recorded.
Yes.
And that General Services gets it first thing the next morning.
That's correct. That is correct. We've had several successes. I thought list some here that residents complained. We got a number of complaints from residents that they couldn't read the traffic signs at night, stop signs. And so we had a big discussion about that. And about the same time, they started putting in a construction lot over on Lot B, which, those of you who don't know which lots are which, that's right across from Garden Center.
Yeah, Garden Ridge.
Garden Ridge, I mean.
It's directly in front of Garden Ridge.
Directly in front. Now that was a parking lot B that had an entrance and an exit.
Mm-hmm.
So you had one-way flow of traffic.
Right.
And the exit was fairly safe because it was on flat level ground right in front of Garden Ridge, and people could look both ways and turn
Right.
out. But they were going to close the exit because they were putting in a construction unit there.
Right.
And so that was an issue, how are you going to get out safely? And right next to the Lot B new exit, entrance and exit, is the regular exit There's only one entrance, and it's also the exit for Lot A. Both of those are situated just below the crest of the big curve up in front of Garden Ridge,
Right.
the sharp curve, and the big hill. And so people have been complaining for years about that because
Yes.
it's very dangerous. People shoot around the curve, get threatened to be run over. And so we had quite a bit of discussion. We found out that Ben was not always in the loop on
Yes.
information because he worries about that. So we had a discussion with Ben and with the higher-ups, Lynn and some others. And I don't know whether it's happenstance, but we claim it as
Okay.
success. That almost immediately, the other thing was the regular signs had no reflective paint.
Right.
So when you're driving at night, they don't reflect. You couldn't read them sometimes. Some people couldn't. So all of a sudden now we've got brand new stop signs all over campus.
Right.
They're new and they have reflective paint on them. They're put at the proper height they're supposed to be. In addition to that, at several crosswalks, at least 2 crosswalks on campus, there is now a sign that shows a person walking like a pedestrian crossing.
Right.
And a button to push, just like downtown DC.
Yes.
There's a button to push, and that sets lights blinking around the pedestrian sign, makes it much safer. And on the curve, up on top of the hill, as you approach Garden Ridge, there is now both directions says stop painted on the street, and there's a stop sign. And both directions. We haven't gotten everyone trained yet that is there.
Right.
So a few people shoot through it, but we yell at them.
Good, good.
And the police, the security get out there on them. But anyway, that's now has stop signs, stop written in the road, much safer there than it would have been otherwise.
Right.
And the people in those lots A and B can get out as well as get in.
Good. However, we should still look both ways.
Oh, you're supposed to do that.
Regardless of the fact of having stop signs, to make sure it's safe before we try to cross the street.
Because this is not a condemnation, but we all get a little older. Our eyes are not quite what they used to be.
Right.
Our reactions are not quite what they used to be, and so we're always reminding people to drive very slowly on campus and look in both ways. Be very careful, because unfortunately, also some people walk in the street.
Yes. And they ignore the fact that there's sidewalks around here.
Oh yes. And some people, even with an EMV,
Yes.
run in the street.
Yeah.
That's another big issue we're working on.
Yeah. And hopefully you'll get that issue resolved, because it's very, very dangerous for the individual with the EMV as well as for the cars. I mean, it's a danger.
In general, we have a project underway now looking at safety with mobility devices,
Okay.
internal, external. In general, you shouldn't do a lot of riding around outside. There's no prohibition on that.
Right.
But you go where it's safe. But we're looking at not only EMVs, where we've had some problems lately. We've had some accidents. There's some people quite upset about that. What are we going to do? But at the Coffee with the Executive meeting a few days ago, Brad, our executive director,
Associate
executive director, re-emphasized the policies now on the book about EMVs,
Right.
which I've always said a policy with no enforcement is not a policy.
Right.
Or not effective anyway. But he is clamping down on that. That's his current project, if you will. But we're trying to collect more information about falls. And falls are frequently related to mobility devices, not always. And corporate is interested in this, and we're trying to put together a set of data, some of which Ben might have on a regular collection basis.
Right.
If someone falls and the security person comes, they write out a report, and so they know where they fell and how they fell and that sort of thing. But not all of those are reported, and not all of those have all that information that corporate now wants. So we're trying to look at, for example, some of the dining halls get a little crowded with with rollators.
Yes.
And people may or may not, but we don't contest whether they need those rollators or not. But they get so congested, they're tripping over each other, and sometimes that causes a fall.
Yes.
And so we look at what could be the solutions to this. Should we require that people have their rollators taken out? Well, for some dining halls that works, and some it doesn't.
Right.
And should we change the spacing among the tables? Well, okay, who's responsible for that? We go back. The dining manager for that dining room is
Right.
responsible for that. So that's a big thing, and now we're trying to collect all kinds of data on falls and what causes them and where they take place, what the circumstances are. By the way, most falls take place in the independent living apartments.
Within our own apartments.
In the apartments.
Okay.
And this is not to complain about anybody either, but just to point out, if you live in an apartment and you try, if you're one of the people that doesn't like to get rid of anything, in some apartments there's simply not even a clean path to the bathroom or to the living room, and it just invites trouble
Yes.
for people tripping and falling, and that happens frequently.
And so we need to clean out our space.
Clean out our space. And so we're collecting data on falls, we're collecting data on mobility devices and the extent to which there are injuries related to those. Reminding people that there's a policy on EMVs, for example, and that you're supposed to have liability insurance,
Right.
and that usually is covered under your homeowner's, your renter's insurance. And if you forgot about that and hadn't renewed it in a few years, you might want to check. Because as Brad said recently, if there's an accident with an EMV and you're responsible for it, you have the EMV and you're responsible, and someone is hurt or property is damaged,
Right.
you will be billed.
Yes.
And either you pay it or the insurance company pays it.
That's right. That's right.
So, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, because it's information that needs to be shared and that we all need to know in regards to our safety. And it's just what we, living together in a communal setting, need to be aware of along those lines. Janice, with the things that you do with maintenance and engineering, a lot of that affects EMVs and the mobility of devices, right?
It does. And we're very fortunate that the safety subcommittee is so focused on this. And our general overall mission is to facilitate communication between Lynn and her staff and the residents who are not able to serve on our committee,
Right.
but are as interested as we are in how general services works and how it addresses the issues here that people care most about, because it impacts everything related to their lives.
It really does. One of the things that I've noticed is we have had loss of some personnel within general services, and it seems to be most effective in maintenance and engineering compared to of the others. Do you have any idea how that's coming along as far as finding replacements?
We know that Lynn is actively recruiting. Some of these positions, especially the higher level ones, we know it's difficult to find the most qualified person because people with that kind of training and experience are in great demand.
Yes.
So Greenspring is competing with other employers, and you know, when Lynn makes a hire, she wants it to be the right person for the job, which does delay things, and that impacts everything her department does, especially the way she allocates her time. I don't think she ever sleeps, and I don't know if she ever goes home, because she is probably the busiest individual I've encountered in the time I've lived here.
Very busy lady, very busy. And she's down in the dungeon.
Yeah.
For those that do not know, General Services office is down in Jackson Court, and the office has no windows to it. And so it is kind of what I call the dungeon down there in the bottom. But they do a heck of a lot of good work around here. They really do.
Yes.
And we couldn't survive without them.
Absolutely.
You know, in regards to, Any suggestions for us as residents of things we could do to make maintenance and engineering and grounds and transportation and safety and security lives better, as things that we as residents could do to facilitate things?
Well, one thing people are already doing, and I applaud them for that and encourage them to continue and to do more, they fill out comment cards for general services, and they communicate with the resident council members who staff the listening posts outside the restaurants. We get those copies of those communications in our committees, so it helps us to focus on the things that people are concerned about,
Right.
and make sure that they don't fall through the cracks, because there is so much going on. So that's really an excellent way for people to let the general services staff who serve them know what their concerns are and what's important to them.
Okay. Excellent.
That's a very important point. And many times, issues are brought to our attention that we weren't even aware of.
Right.
And they come through the comment cards and through the listening post.
And maintenance, and general services just in general, rely on us to be their eyes and ears on campus. They can't be everywhere.
Right.
In regards to it. Because one of the things that I always find interesting is, a door will be sticking or not locked securely or whatever. And it's like that for a couple of days, and I called in, it's kind of like they had not heard about it.
Right.
And it's kind of like, come on folks, let's all get together here and make sure we're reporting things as we see things on campus.
I see these, the overall committee and the subcommittees of general services, and maybe the same thing for all the other committees, but I see us as sort of a communication nexus, if you will. We've tried to sweep up and gather up and listen to all the concerns of the residents and bring those together in a setting where we talk to staff about it. We talk to the Green Spring staff and the right people to bring it to their attention. At the same time, they have issues and concerns that we're not always aware of.
Right.
And Ben, for example, in our committee, the security director, brings to us several issues. For example, we were not aware of the problem with the signing in and signing out.
Right. But those are things that are brought to your attention, and so you as a committee then can make recommendations, right, and deal with it.
Yes.
Okay.
But there's two ways. Oh, go right ahead.
Now, what I was going to say is we're beginning to run out of time here, and I'm just going to try to wrap it up real fast in regards to it. But those are things that are important, and we need to be sharing what's going on, right, with one another and with general services. Okay.
Yes.
If we feel that the residents need to know something, we feel it's our job to get it out there so they know about it.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, thank both of you for coming in with us today and sharing your information and knowledge. And we hope everybody's learned something and that they follow up with things that are going on. Okay? Thanks
Thank
again.
you.